2030 goal. So those are those are big charges. The strike force has been added, diligently meeting on a weekly basis to identify sets of recommendations around preservation of Black homeownership in the district, about financing of would-be Black homeowners, Black households that are interested in homeownership opportunities, and also about making sure we have more of a supply, particularly affordable opportunities, both single family and multifamily, an array of more supply that's available and affordable. So that's the charge of the strike force. I'll just say that this is generational work. And in many ways for me, it's personal work. I'm the parent of a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, 17-year-old, and 19-year-old. And as you can imagine, the 17 and 19-year-old, this generational work that we're doing by 2030, they may be in a place where they're starting to think about home ownership. But certainly when we get to 2040, they're squarely in where we want to have sets of homeowners who are continuing to be able to build wealth. So thank you so much, and looking forward to talking more.
Tell me real quickly though, before we move on, what does the Office of Planning, what does it do?
Oh, thank you for that opportunity and that invitation. So the Office of Planning is focused on kind of guiding growth and development in the city. One of the things that we're charged with is both developing and helping to implement and steward the comprehensive plan, which guides the kind of long-term growth and development. We think about neighborhoods, we think about the district, we think about issues of design, housing, transportation, economic development, and how those all come together to create vibrant and equitable neighborhoods for everyone.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Director Hubbard, what do you see as the most pressing issues affecting and impacting Black home ownership?
I think you touched on it when you introduced the topic. It's really making sure there's enough supply at a level that people can actually afford to be in the market to go after their dream of ownership. It's about safe and stable places to live, but it's also everything that goes with the promise of home ownership that other folks in our culture and country have been able to take advantage of. Having that wealth building opportunity, being able to pull money out of a home for a business startup or to help put a child through school. So it's really about the stability of being a homeowner and the ability for that transformational part that allows people really to use their money to work towards them. So making sure that, with land prices and the cost of living in DC being what it is, making sure that we have the correct policies and programs in place, that we empower Black residents to be able to participate, not just on parity, but to really make up the ground that has been lost over the years because of some of the policies we've talked about so far. So it's really putting policy resources and intentional thought in place to help level the playing field and help Black folks exceed where we've been for the past several decades.
Now tell people really quick, what does the Department of Housing and Community Development, what does it do?
Absolutely. We are one of the housing agencies in the city. We are the cabinet level agency that's charged with the production and preservation of affordable housing in the district. As well, that's really our charge, is to look at increasing homeownership opportunities, looking at the production affordable housing, both rental and for sale, and looking at neighborhood and community development, helping to revitalize underserved neighborhoods.
All right. And I'm gonna move on to Mrs. Reid. You are a pioneering woman, having developed your business, and you have assisted many into achieving home ownership. What are some of the obstacles that you see to advancing Black home ownership? Ms. Reid?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. There you go.
I said, thank you. Kudos to the mayor, first of all, for putting together this task force to try to deal with these multifaceted problems that we're now having in the city in regard to home ownership. I've been a real estate broker and developer for over 30 years. And my focus, primarily our focus on my company is affordable housing. And my client base for the most part is African Americans, Blacks, the repeat customers, families and friends of the people who we've dealt with, because people feel more comfortable with the people that they know or they can trust. And I found that over the years, we stress that home ownership is one of the most important purchases that people will ever make. And in doing so, when we sell someone a house, to change the trajectory of their life for and their future generations. So it's extremely important. Right now, we're dealing with the housing crisis here in the district as well as all over the country. And that is basically being fueled by a lot of different forces. It's not just something that is accidental, is being done very purposely, and it's not something that we can ignore. We have to basically deal with it and deal with it very aggressively because of the fact that their train is already moving down the track and very rapidly. For me, I feel that one of the main problems is credit. I've dealt with this issue for so many years. One of the main barriers is African Americans try to go buy a house. They're dealing with this aspect of quote unquote credit. Credit was something that was basically fueled by two guys that created the FICO program called Fair Isaac. Fair Isaac was created by two white guys. The first one is Bill Fair and a guy named Earl Isaac, and they developed an algorithm by which they're from Montana, but they were trained at Stanford, and they developed this algorithm by which it assisted whites in being able to purchase houses or to get credit, but it was very racist as far as Black people are concerned because of the uneven playing field. You cannot use the same parameters to be able to assess a white person's credibility as a Black person's credibility. And this is something that's plagued us through the years to be able to being denied the opportunity to purchase houses. And we deal with this all the time through the financing industry, through the governmental forces, the financing industry, the community industries, and things of that nature. And I think that we need to seriously take a look at that. And in regard to like rental housing, for example, this is one of my main focuses. When we see Black people having to be relegated to paying rent for the rest of their lives, almost because of the fact they have bad credit. One of the reasons why is bad credit. Now, when you look at rent, then why is it that you have people who pay rent for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe a lifetime? Like my mother, for example, is very personal to me. And when my mother passed away, there was nothing left for us. So this is something I really zoned in on, the fact that people who pay rent for 5, 10, 15, 20 years should not be denied the opportunity to purchase a house because they have already established their credibility of being able to purchase a house by virtue of the fact that they've been paying the rent for these many years. And the rent often is less than a mortgage payment. So this is something that we're looking at on the task force as well as to how we can be able to pivot some housing projects that are rental to home ownership opportunities to be able to create that generational wealth that is so direly needed within our community.
Thank you. And what we're discovering across the country is now rental costs has exceeded the cost of purchasing a property. And so people really are faced with that obstacle, can't get over it because they're locked in that cycle of renting. I'm gonna go on to Mr. Mircetic. You've been director of NACA's DC office. Tell the audience what NACA has been doing and what is the mortgage product that you offer, and how do you see that as being part of the solution to what we're talking about?
Well, good morning, everybody. I've been a part of NACA for a little bit over 13 years now, and we are located here in the district. So it's one of the areas we serve, and some of the issues that were brought up by the folks who talked before me NACA removes those obstacles. NACA is a home ownership organization, and we offer, we like to call it, America's best mortgage program. So far, nobody's been able to take that title from us because we do not require down payment. We do not have any closing costs for the buyer. We do not charge fees or points. There is no credit score requirement with NACA. And we offer to low to moderate income families or borrowers below market interest rate. So all the roadblocks that historically kept minorities out of the market, we've been able to remove. And of course, this is a result of many, many years of advocacy that predates me, and Reverend Hagler has been at the forefront of that with our founder and CEO, Bruce Marks. So this sort of product allows people to enter the market where they ordinarily could not be. We don't charge fees. We do have eligibility requirements. This is for people and families who wish to own a home, to live in it. This is not for investors. But apart from that, there's no limitations or what you can do with NACA. We also offer property renovations, meaning that you can also rehab the home you're purchasing. And this is good for cities like Washington, D.C., because most of the properties that people are trying to purchase have been in existence for a little bit, so they do need a little bit of renovation. This is part of the NACA loan, if you wish to make it. And there's no limitations on what you can do. You can go from requireds to wish list. Basically, you can gut the house and have yourself a brand new home by the time you're done. Some of the challenges we're experiencing is the market. Everybody on the call has basically confirmed that the market conditions are not necessarily in favor of low to moderate income families. So some of the things that we're doing, in addition to the great product that we already have, is we are trying to partner with every organization, every grant out there, every effort to make room for low to moderates to enter the program. So programs like HPAP, we're working diligently with the Housing and Community Development Department, so we can partner the two programs together, so we can make so that the low to moderate income families can afford a little bit more in the district, and every little bit counts here. Because it could be a difference between, yes, I can purchase in Washington, D.C., or I'm going to have to move to PG County, like Reverend Hagler mentioned earlier. There's a lot of people just going across the border because they can't afford. One of the things that I would like to mention is that NACA puts together these Achieve the Dream events throughout the United States. We've just finished Houston. We are coming to Baltimore, which is very close to Washington, D.C. It is going to be from September 8th through September 12th. It's a 5-day event. I know that on our website it says from 8 to 8, but we don't really honor those hours. We work from 8 to whenever. And if there's anybody out there interested in the program, you can finish it from start to finish in one day if you're prepared. For more information, you can visit our website at www.naca.com. We will have the workshops, we will have the scanning stations, we will have the counselors, the underwriters. Everybody's going to be together on one floor at the convention center for 5 days. And we work tirelessly to qualify everybody for home ownership.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to point out full disclosure. I'm a NACA homeowner.
So am I.
And I had to gut my house because it was abandoned and it was destroyed on the inside. And through NACA, we gutted the house and put it back together. I'm 1 block away from the church. And so I've been here, and so it works. That's what I'm saying. And Director Cozart and Director Hubbard, we should probably select a day to go over to Baltimore so you can see firsthand what's going on over there, because it's not too far. We can go up and come right back. It's an exciting thing to participate in and to see, because one of the things that I'm interested in, and I know that you're interested in, is how can we make public money go further and have a greater impact on people in the city. And I know Ms. Reid has been really up on that and have been standing on a soapbox around it. And she's used NACA many times. Have you not, Ms. Reid?
Absolutely, had to.
And I'm glad that you sort of brought that whole issue up. Now, I want to point out this because there's been things that we've been talking about on the strike force, which are real. And that is that we got a whole lot of home purchase assistance programs. But it's gotten clear that very few people know about how to access it, know what's there. And even when they're working with somebody who is doing real estate, they don't know either. And so that becomes a real disconnect in terms of trying to figure out how we service and how we really begin to bring people to the product. How do we begin to resolve that and create a vehicle with which people can feel some type of confidence? Because a lot of people, because we always use this term mortgage ready. And I hate that term because everybody is mortgage ready. They just got obstacles in their way. If we take away the obstacles, then everybody's mortgage ready. And so we need to really begin to figure out how we bring people to what's out there that can help them. I'm gonna ask Mrs. Reid if she would comment on that first of all, since she's out there working with clients day in and day out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're on the front lines. We deal with people on a very individual, personal level, and one of the main problems is that at one time there were the African American realtors were not allowed to belong to the Realtors Association, and then we formed the Realtors Association and another organization called REBA to be able to assist with African American realtors. And one of the main problems is that within the real estate industry, the realtors who practice real estate, the various companies, are not required to know the programs. And I never understood that because you cannot help people if you don't understand what the programs are that are assisting people to be able to purchase. So you call a company that has no knowledge of HPAP or NACA or any of the various programs, and they will tell the purchaser, prospective purchaser who's asking, how can I buy a house? And say, well, if they say I don't have money for down payment, or they say I don't have enough income, they say, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. So right then and there, that person forever feels that they can't qualify to buy a house, where it should be some type of policy wherein the city will require that people who are practicing real estate, particularly people who are licensed real estate brokers and real estate agents, have to know something about the various housing programs to be able to help the people for which they're supposed to serve. It's very simple.
Amen. Any comments towards that, or any comments about this in general?
I'll jump in and since we're doing disclosures, 10, 12 years ago, Miss Reid actually sold me my house using HPAP. And to her point, she knew the program. The lender I worked with knew the program. There were even, bumps and stumbles, even being a government worker dealing with housing. Things happen. My closing slipped a couple times, but having somebody like Shelia and the lender I was working with who know the ins and outs of the program allowed me to not walk away, which I almost did, from using the city program, even being involved with it. But I think she makes a great point, and it's one of the points I know we've discussed with the strike force, of having a dedicated lender pool, having dedicated realtors and real estate professionals that know the program, making it a requirement. You said it right. We need to make these dollars stretch as far as we can. And part of that is it's incumbent on us as the stewards of those dollars to make sure the program works as efficiently as possible, works at the speed of the market, and moves those barriers away so that, every dollar stretches as far as it can.
Tell us, Director Cozart or Director Hubbard, what are some of the programs that exist in DC that people can access if they know how?
Well, I'll start with the kind of clearinghouse, and to your point, making sure people know what's already out there is paramount. So frontdoordc.com is the centralized website where all of the city programs can be accessed by residents in one place.
What is that called again?
Front Door DC. And what's exciting about it is it starts off really asking, what are your goals? It asks you to do a survey to point you to the particular programs that are in place. So it points you, if you need assistance for down payment and closing costs, to HPAP, if you're a government worker, to EHAP, to the HFA DC Open Doors program, to some of the programs. And the mayor was intentional about including our Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking on the strike force to look at issues of credit and financial health, to make sure that we are preparing folks to go down this journey, because it is a journey and it's a necessary one to make sure that folks can really cash in on this really needed path to homeownership.
All right, all right. Anything you want to add to that, Director Cozart?
No, he summed it up quite well.
All right, all right. And I see that Anna Van Balen has joined us, but I don't know if she wants to come on camera or she just wants to listen in. But let me sort of point out that I want to go back to NACA for just a second, because one of the things that that is important, I think that over the time, over 5,000, nearly 6,000 people have been able to purchase homes in DC through NACA, if I understand the numbers correctly. Is that right, Brother Mircetic?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good record even in the high market. And so part of it is, again, we got to look at how we tear down barriers. Now, one thing that's important that I think that we fail to talk about, and that is the continued escalation and speculation that takes place in the DC market. Because when I point to speculation drives up the price of housing artificially. And it also does not allow average working families to get first access to those properties. And therefore they miss, because you got all types of investor money coming in that is talking about that we do cash offers, we'll settle in 10 days and all that other type of stuff. And basically nobody can compete who's trying to get financing together to be able to get there first. So we got to figure out, this is my perspective, we got to figure out how we slow down the speculation and therefore the artificial escalation of the market. Because let's face it, most of this money is coming not only out of the area, but a lot of it's coming from out of the country. A lot of it's linked to hedge funds. A lot of it's linked to real estate investment trusts. And therefore it's not really even benefiting anybody in DC. And so what can we do to begin to slow down the speculation?
So I'm happy to hop in here, and Director Hubbard, if you want to add as well. I think this is one of the things that's so important about having a strike force that has on it folks who've done work in advocacy, folks who represent, as Reverend Hagler does, a faith-based community, folks who work with seniors and immigrant communities, but also folks who are in real estate development and affordable housing development. And through our deliberations as a strike force, we've started to really think about what is the mechanism that we could create that would likely leverage both municipal funds, but also some non-government dollars as well, to be able to intercede in that speculation process that you described. Intercede and meaning work with those who voluntarily want to be able to sell their home because something positive is happening to them and they want to relocate. But at the same time, and they would like the fair value of their home, but at the same time, they understand the importance of cultural belonging in a community, neighborhood fabric, all of those things. How do we get to that supply of homes? And most of those homes, as you pointed out, Reverend Hagler, are older, and they're part of that natural, more affordable housing stock than some of the newer homes that are being built. And so finding that mechanism and working with those who are in the lending community, those who are in that affordable real estate community are really important. And the other piece is to recognize that the mayor is putting forward some seed funding, right? We talked about the $10 million for the Black Homeownership Strike Force work. That's seed funding. Well, we understand that many banks in their response to the protests around the Black Lives Matter movement made pledges that they would support Black communities. And in some ways that showed up. One example is JPMorgan Chase. They've been investing resources in promoting Black homeownership in Atlanta and Seattle, for example. We'd love to be able to see some of those resources come towards Black homeownership in the district. And so those mechanisms, they actually need some financial support. And then also making sure to connect that up with the programs that Director Hubbard talked about, folks who are going through those programs being able to take advantage of opportunities for homeownership, affordable homeownership.
Anybody want to add anything?
I think that one of the things that we may take a look at is if in fact we could have some type of apparatus wherein a house comes on the market and the seller is given some type of incentive to be able to sell to a person who is going to actually occupy the home rather than to an investor. And that is something that we have to really drill down on and figure out what is the mechanism by which we can create that could be utilized to offset that mammoth is like piranha out there, purchasing housing with hedge funds and REITs and things like that. There is no way that the average home buyer could possibly compete with that.
That's right. That's right. And let me point out that in New York, when there was speculation taking place in the co-op market, they gave the co-ops the right to charge up to 50% in terms of taxes to speculators, to folks who were buying and wasn't going to live there, but were going to flip it. And so you got co-ops that are actually able to say 50% in transfer tax, and so to prohibit speculators. Y'all know I've been pushing a proposal, and the proposal I've been pushing is that you really look at homes in DC when they are bought. If they're held less than 24 months or 36 months, but 24 months, it cannot be inflated any more than 10%, which includes also the investment value in it. So if I got a $400,000 property, if I'm gonna sell it in less than 24 months, I only can sell it for $440,000. If I put $200,000 worth of value into the property, raising the value of the property from 400 to 600, I still can only sell it for $660,000 within 24 months. Now, after 24 months, you can do anything you want to do. And so that basically allows those who have been in their homes to be able to take advantage of the market because they're free and clear. They've been in the neighborhoods. But it really sort of begins to slow down the speculation because it makes it dead money for 24 months. And it really targets people who want to live in DC rather than people who want to flip DC and basically remove people from the neighborhoods. I just want to throw that out because I think it's something that we need to really look at, because I think you really talked about it, Ms. Reid, that we got to think sort of radically in terms of changing this whole paradigm. If you want to get in on the conversation, I'm going to invite you to call 202-588-0893, 202-588-0893. We're talking with Mrs. Reid, who's the president and CEO of Avanti Real Estate Services, Interim Director Anita Cozart from the Office of Planning, Drew Humphrey from the Housing and Community Development, and also Mircetic from the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. If you have a question, you have a concern, you have a solution, we invite you to join in the conversation that we're having today. But we got to really begin to think about something along some radical lines if we're going to change this trend. Yeah, you got anything you want to say to that proposal that I threw out there? Because I'm trying to get it as loud as possible, that proposal, at least to have a discussion around it. Oh, y'all quiet. Okay.
I was trying to unmute. I think you're right. You know, especially in the face of, you know, generational hurdles, access denied in this area. We do have to do something different, something radical. You're absolutely right. It's not so much different than some years ago when you know, policy was put in place around vacant and blighted homes. You know, you had people sitting on homes waiting for the market conditions to be right. You know, while that blight affected neighborhoods, so the city decided, all right, if you're going to sit on a home, you're gonna pay for it. You're going to higher tax rate to kind of spur those owners to redevelop those homes, to put them in a productive use. So it's that kind of thinking you're talking about. I think it's right, and it's the discussion we need to continue to have in the strike force to fill our toolbox. It's not going to be one single silver bullet, but the more tools we have to hit this, the better off we are. So,
because I hear you keep saying, and I think you're absolutely right. You know, Brother Hubbard, you keep talking about the supply. The supply isn't there. Well, the reason the supply isn't there is because of the speculation. You know, so it's sort of like, how do we begin to impact that? Because one of the things that does not work, and I think Brother Mircetic can talk to this, is that, you know, we get into this idea of supply and demand, this whole capitalist formula. Well, supply and demand really doesn't work in terms of the market right now in DC and also in sort of major metropolitan areas that are changing. And what I'm getting at is that we build more houses, we build more condos, but the value of them, instead of decreasing, it increase, right? Because in a sense, the real estate market, when it's hot, defies that model, that economic model of supply and demand. Mircetic from NACA, you have a comment you want to make?
Absolutely. First, I just want to mention that NACA also believes that owner occupancy is key. That's one of the things that require everybody of NACA. Whoever uses NACA to purchase a home is required to own or occupy it. And I do believe that your motion is right on point. And it goes along with NACA's mission. As you know, we are, you know, twofold. Part of our mission is to stabilize neighborhoods. How can you stabilize neighborhoods without home ownership? Without homeowner occupied homes. So I think that's a great motion you put in place. I believe it will help resolve the issue if there's any traction gained. And as far as the supply and demand is concerned, it's a very basic economic concept, but like you said, it doesn't quite apply in Washington, D.C. So one of the things that I believe would help is if we remove some of the roadblocks for the folks to access the funds that are out there. It shouldn't be that difficult to access HPAP or EHAP or any other funds out there, and combine it with a program like NACA so that we can extend the purchase power of individuals who wish to purchase a home to live in. For investors, it's easy. So there's no red tape there, but there's so much red tape for low to moderate income folks to access the fund. So one of the things that I believe would help is if we streamline and make these already available funds easier to access and combine with programs like NACA, so that we can extend that purchase power and people can enter market at a competing level.
Let me check it with the studio to see if there's any callers on the line. Studio, can you let me know if there's any callers on the line? And invite you to dial into 202-588-0893, 202-588-0893. And as we sort of want to sort of continue to talk about this, Director Cozart, in terms of the plans for DC, what do you see? What do you see as we move forth from here? Because in some ways, in many ways, it don't really look too good for working families. And so what, from your perspective, from where you sit, and you sit in a place where you see a whole lot of pieces, what pieces are in place, and what pieces need to be put in place to basically alleviate the kind of pressure that working families are feeling?
So that's a great question. One of the one of the kind of tools that the Bowser administration released in June was an upward mobility framework. And so this speaks to this idea of bringing down barriers and making the experience for some of the more low and moderate income households in the district much smoother, a smoother pathway to prosperity, right? From stability to mobility to prosperity. And so this framework looks at issues of housing and what's the journey that you might have from housing instability to home ownership. What are the handoffs that need to happen? How do you weave together various programs that provide that support? We also looked at it from the dimension of income. And what are ways that you can improve your opportunities to move up the income ladder in terms of employment and entrepreneurship? And also thinking about it in terms of wealth and wealth building and wealth creation. And so this framework is really important for guiding district actions, but also it's very helpful as it relates to thinking about how the nonprofit sector can provide support. As part of putting this framework together, we had sets of focus groups, and we talked to some of the community-based organizations that work directly with low and moderate income residents in the district, and got really a true understanding of what are those hurdles that they perceive, and started to come up with solutions that really help and provide that support on that pathway from through stability, through mobility, all the way to prosperity.
And can I add to that, Reverend Hagler, just a couple more points?
Yes.
There's also the lens of equity. And Mayor Bowser became first in the nation to put forth housing production goals by neighborhood. So, for your audience, and I'm sure you are well aware of this over the years, there's parts of the city where we don't have any appreciable amount of affordable housing, rental, homeownership, otherwise. The northwestern part of the city. So we put an equity housing production plan in place to really set goals to increase the number of units in traditional areas where we have affordable housing, but with a more particular focus on parts of the city where we haven't. So Rock Creek West, Rock Creek East, the central part of the city, to make sure that the dollars we do have and the programs we have focus in on those areas to add affordable housing opportunities there. The other piece I do want to highlight too is making sure that we energize the faith community, the faith-based community, to help us solve this problem too. Again, for disclosure, I'm a member of Emory United Methodist Church on Georgia Avenue. And I'll
just give you a thumbs up on that one. All right. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Emory, as well as several other congregations around the city, don't just talk about or kind of help around the fringes with this problem. They do it directly. We redid our sanctuary and did approximately 100 units of affordable housing to ring the sanctuary.
Right, that's right.
So it's that kind of model.
Beautiful development too. Beautiful.
Yeah, as a tool. And I like to say, I don't know how I became the faith-based guy. I don't know if they think I'm the only person in government that goes to church, but it's needed. And we put our money into supporting faith institutions too, through pre-development, through technical assistance, to make sure you can unlock that own land. Because I think one of the things I like to say, the faith community is one of the most natural allies that we have in this fight.
All right.
I'm
gonna hold you up a second because we got a couple of callers I want to get to. Caller, good morning. You're on What's at Stake. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning. My name is William. I live in DC's Ward 1 neighborhood. And I can say that the problem is the government itself. The speculation that we see in the market, the loss of Black home ownership, the failure to develop new projects that the government funds, to ensure that homeownership opportunities are in those projects, the government itself is not doing that. In fact, they work against it in many cases. They de-incentivize homeownership opportunities. So I think part of it is that we have to do a major policy shift, and that's going to require, the agencies and people who are involved to speak truth to power and really do something different. You can't keep playing the same game. I mean, the government invited those hedge funds in, subsidized those hedge funds, and it's got to stop.
Thank you.
That's really my comment.
I'm glad you made that comment because I think that we need to hear that comment and need to be able to respond. I have another caller on the line. I want to go to you as well. Good morning. Welcome to What's at Stake.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you.
Fantastic. I want to thank you all for the wonderful discussion on a vital topic this morning. But just a couple things that maybe you all can reflect on either this morning or afterwards. One, I was listening to the idea around supply and demand, and I would respectfully say that I don't think those laws are suspended in the District of Columbia. I think when it comes to home ownership, there's two main challenges. The big one, overarching thing being, there's more demand for homes than there is supply. That makes competition for those homes, pretty tough. On the supply side, the challenge I think we have is that we have limited land area on the horizontal plane, meaning the absolute size of the District of Columbia in terms of 10 square miles on each side, except on Virginia and Maryland corner. Much of that land is currently occupied. There's very little open space, which then brings me to something that other jurisdictions have been working with, facing similar challenges around the United States and in Europe. And that is seriously looking at zoning in order to increase the carry capacity of the land that we have by going vertical.
But let me point this out because I hear where you're going, but let me point this out. In my neighborhood, houses are going from elderly folks for $300,000-$400,000 being flipped and coming back out for $1 million. That impacts the supply for working families, because obviously you got to have either intergenerational wealth to afford that, or you got a trust fund to afford that. The reality is it's knocking working people out because that's the climate right now, based upon the money of speculators.
I agree with you. I think everything you've just said there is 100% accurate, but I would encourage us to think about that is accurate as it relates to that segment of the supply pie. You're correct. Those amount of homes that are currently owned by people that are retiring or aging is limited. We can count them. We can literally go to the Office of Real Estate or Property Records, and we know how many homes are in DC today.
And that's what all the speculators are doing, because I get 30 calls a day. And I'm an entirely elderly neighborhood that's under attack.
Let me end by just suggesting this.
Go ahead.
I don't think we can rule out speculation. We can disincentivize speculation, and I heard some ideas on that this morning.
Yes.
But I think at the same time, we would accomplish your goals, and I share them, of expanding home ownership among non-speculative purchasers.
Correct.
By increasing the supply of homes available at a reasonably financially accessible price. And we only can do that by building more homes. And we can only build more homes in the District of Columbia, I would submit, by challenging the zoning regime that has controlled this city for more than 50 years.
All right, thank you.
That is incentivizing multifamily rentals.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna bring Director Cozart in from the Office of Planning, because that sort of falls in to her in terms of the comp plans and all of those other types of things. Thank you so much, caller.
Sure, and I want to make a link, start by making a link to what Director Hubbard was talking about in terms of working with faith-based institutions and other non-government institutions that have a mission driven around affordable housing, really working them to think about how to both rezone properties that is a complement to the technical assistance and other financial support that Director Hubbard talked about. In addition, these are things that we've already done, not things we're exploring, things we've already done. We've increased opportunities for more intense development around transit corridors. That's both bus priority corridors where there's significant investment that the administration is making in transportation all across the city. We've also expanded inclusionary zoning and increased, as was shared by Director Hubbard, affordable set-asides in high opportunity areas like Rock Creek West and Rock Creek East. We're also working to make it easier to build accessory apartments in more areas throughout the district. So that's not just a kind of a niche or unique thing, but more available. And then lastly, we're looking at ways that we can make it easier to convert office buildings that, especially through the pandemic, have not been occupied, that could be converted to residential uses, including affordable units as well. And those, many of those, depending on the type they are, if you're talking about larger buildings, that's probably going to tend a bit more towards rentals, but smaller buildings, which we have small office buildings across the city, those could be ripe for our affordable homeownership opportunities.
And really quickly, Ms. Reid and Mircetic, what can help you? What do you need in place to help you provide for clients?
A couple of things. I'm glad you called on me because I live and also my office building is in Columbia Heights. So therefore, I have experienced firsthand many of the things that we were talking about. And in Columbia Heights, I know that there are some projects that are government projects that could be converted to rent rather than rental into home ownership opportunities. So these are the innovative kinds of thinking of the box things we have to do. There's been the old way of doing things. We have to think in a new way because we're dealing in a different and new market. And as far as zoning is concerned, I used to chair the Board of Zoning Adjustment for 5 years. So the things that can be done as far as zoning is concerned, for example, here in Columbia Heights, you see these houses that have, you can rent out, you live in the upper unit and rent out the bottom unit, that makes that house more affordable. However, some of the programs may be adverse to that kind of creative kind of home ownership. We need to then think again how we can create and to persuade and to show people how they can utilize these kinds of tools to be able to afford a house as well.
All right. And Mircetic, what do you see that can help your client?
Well, one of the things I'm going to go back to, and one of the things that I reemphasize is working with other programs. NACA is very flexible in with who we can work with. We just need to streamline the ways that we can combine programs more easier so we can have access to these funds for the home buyers in Washington, D.C. So I know we keep saying this at NACA, teamwork makes the dream work, but it really is true for some of these folks. It will make their dream of homeownership work if we partner up and we remove some of the roadblocks that we currently have in combining the programs. NACA is willing to work with whichever program out there benefits the buyer, because the buyer is the most important thing to us. And programs like HPAP, programs like we even have home ownership through public assistance, which we call HUD PHA. That means we work with Section 8 vouchers. It's been proven in Newark, the city of Newark. It's been proven all around the country. So we have an open door policy. We just need to work and combine these programs to enhance the buyer's ability to purchase in the district.
Thank you. We got the arsenal. We can actually do it if we utilize the arsenals that we have, the things that exist for us. And I just want to thank you because we're pretty much out of time. And I want to thank you, Director Anita Cozart, and thank you, Director Drew Hubbard, and thank you, Sister Shelia Reid, and thank you, Djuro Mircetic, for being on our program today. You've been listening to What's at Stake on WPFW 89.3 FM. I'm Reverend Graylin Scott Hagley, your host every second Wednesday of the month. Hopefully you learned something out of this program this morning, and that you know what we can do together and what we can make happen together once we apply ourselves and open up chains of communication. And so I just want to thank you, the audience of WPFW. We had some telephone problems earlier, and that's what we had to solve. We got it solved. We got a couple of callers on the air, but I know that there were other callers who were trying to call in, and I apologize for that this time around, but hopefully we'll have this discussion again in the future, because it's a lot to unpack here, and it's important that we unpack it, because we're all trying to work together to bring some kind of positive outcome in DC so that working families can have a shot. I'll just point out this before I sign out, is that one of the things that's a problem with development right now is the development is not necessarily geared towards families right now. It's geared towards a lot of single people living in DC for a little while and then moving on. And so what, in order to reverse the trend, we got to look at families being able to raise children in DC, have neighborhoods in DC. That's what existed in this community when Black folks moved up here in South Manor and other places in 1961. That's when Plymouth was thrown out of DuPont Circle at 17th and P Street Northwest and moved up to its present location because that was urban removal that took place at that point. And so we were up here because the community had moved up here. And so we got to really look at how we begin to create a context where families can actually be in place. I want to thank you for tuning in this morning. Thank you for being a part of WPFW community. And sisters and brothers, we have a lot to get done, but I want you to be empowered, be blessed, be lifted up. We got a lot to get done, and we will get it done. Take care. See you soon.